Winter's here, and with that, we have the series season finale of Attack on Titan. We got the new arc of Demon Slayer rolling out, and we also have the second cour of Ranking of Kings. But that's not the topic of today's video. Our topic is, I watched the first episode of every new top-awaited Winter 2022 anime, so you don't have to. Welcome. I'll be giving a brief synopsis of each story, what I thought about it, and whether I'll stick with it or not. So, before we start, subscribe, like, and tell me if you would like more vids like these in the future.
我慢して。
やだ、そんなに太いの怖い。
大丈夫、痛くないから。
別に、ちょっと痛くしてもいいけど。
Yeah, they got your ass too, huh? Sabikui Bisco takes place in a post-apocalyptic Japan where Tokyo just suddenly gets nuked. Fast forward to the current future. This episode follows Milo, who's a beloved doctor in the slums who's helping people who have contracted a sickness called the rusting, and in order to find a cure, he's gathering mushrooms which the current government has deemed illegal to possess because they say mushrooms caused the rusting. Heavy quotations around caused. The country has become wary of a group of terrorists called mushroom keepers who are able to just make giant mushrooms spawn out of nowhere. And one of these mushroom keepers is able to infiltrate the city Milo's in and cause havoc. Milo finds himself in the middle of all this and quickly makes his way home only to find out he's been followed by the mushroom keeper Bisco. Okay, for a debut episode, it comes pretty strong out the gate. You get immersed into the world pretty quickly, seeing Milo interact with other 6 civilians and watching the news talking about an untrustworthy government. It's setting us up for a great story with a bunch of unanswered questions that have already sparked my curiosity, like when the hell is this Colossus Titan that caused a nuke? Why do these henchmen wear bunny helmets? How does Bisco spawn mushrooms with his arrows? On top of all this, the animation is pretty top tier. This is a series that I'm definitely going to keep up with, and I suggest you do too. Gojo growing up was always fond of Hina dolls and his grandfather's profession of creating them. He also obsesses over them in a certain way that I'm sure some of you can relate with. But due to his obsession and discipline he's put into his craft, he's never socialized with anyone, so he's a bit of an outcast and a pushover. All of a sudden, a thing we all wish for happens. A chick falls out of the air right next to us. We're introduced to our female main character, Marin. We might have our next contender for best girl here. I foresee it in the scriptures. Anyway, she notices Gojo getting taken advantage of for his kindness and is upset for him. She tells him to stand up for himself and he self-reflects on that. Later on, Gojo is forced to use the school sewing machines and in pops Marin while he's talking to his Hina doll. He's pretty sure Marin's going to chastise him, but to his surprise, she also likes the doll too. From there, we learn she's trying to use the sewing machine to create a cosplay, but isn't that great at sewing. But luckily, Gojo has the skills and he agrees to help her make her cosplay. And the show starts from there. Manga fans were really excited that this was getting animated, and I can see why. You got 2 quirky characters set up for what's looking to be a real good rom-com. I'm not skipping this one, and unless you're not a fan of rom-coms, this one might be for you too. Reito learns he's been diagnosed with cellular sclerosis and needs to be cryogenically frozen for about 4 years so the cure can be made and to stop the spread. He says his final goodbyes to his family and enters cryogenic sleep. 5 years later, and he wakes up to find he's been cured of his illness, but also finds out all the men have been eradicated due to the man-killer virus. And he finds the reason he and a few other men survive is probably due to their cellular sclerosis. But that's not all. The women in this world now expect Reito and the others to be a savior for mankind and become a breeding horse to repopulate the world with children. Unfortunately for those women, Reito's got a big case of one-itis. Listen, if you know the manga for this, we know what we got waiting in store. And as people of culture, we have a cultural duty to watch this anime and spread the word about this, like the women in this show expect the men to spread their seed. Ecchi harems are a dying breed and need to be kept alive. And besides, we know you were going to watch this anyway. Crunchyroll is airing the censored version, so if you're looking for the true viewing experience, you're going to have to look elsewhere. Matthias has become as strong as he can, but is power capped because of his current crest. And in order for him to grow stronger, he needs the 4th crest. So he tries his hand at RNG and chooses to reincarnate to get a new crest. Matthias comes back with the crest he wanted and is already overpowered. He enrolls in Magic Academy and the staff quickly notices that he's able to cast spells without an incantation. Incantationless casting has become a taboo in the school system, and no one is sure why until a competition occurs between rival schools. Matthias then faces off with a rival student and is able to realize it's a demon in disguise who can also cast without no incantation. He then defeats the demon and is able to deduce that demons have infiltrated human society and nerfed them into only casting spells by reciting incantations. We got ourselves another power fantasy show with an MC we can self-insert ourselves into, and I feel like I've seen this story so many times already and I'm not sure if I want to commit to another one. So I'll give this anime the 3-episode rule and watch 2 more episodes. From there I'll decide whether or not to drop it, because as of right now it really isn't anything special. I hope I'm proven wrong though. One day, a demonic Oni known as Kishin fight to take over the land over humans and succeed. And now the only people who are fighting against the Kishin are the rebels known as the Bushi. And jumping to the present day, humans have been made to worship their Kishin overlords. Musashi feels otherwise. Musashi has always wanted to become a Bushi along with his friend Kojiro since they were kids. Yet, he currently is just a resource miner and Kojiro doesn't want him to suffer under the path of being a Bushi. Here you learn Kojiro's family used to be ex-Bushi, and as punishment for their lineage, they must always carry a katana with them to be shamed in public. Then Kojiro calls out Musashi on how he constantly spouts lies in his mining class by saying the Kishin Pledge of Allegiance and not pronouncing he wants to become a Bushi. But in reality, Kojiro just wants Musashi to live a pain-free life and not be shamed for wanting to become a Bushi. After that, Musashi runs off to his mining class graduation and gets escorted there by the Kishin. They confiscate everyone's pickaxes and then lead them into a trap to force slave labor. Finally, Musashi announces that he wants to be a Bushi but forgets he doesn't have his pickaxe to defend himself. So he picks up the world's smallest pickaxe and gets slapped around until Kojiro comes out of nowhere with a bike and gives Musashi back his pickaxe and they defend the people against the Oni. The episode ends with a cliffhanger of a stronger Oni coming down their way. I like the concept of this show, but I felt the story is portrayed poorly, and at the end, a lot of random stuff just started happening that just didn't really make any sense. It also feels like it caters to a younger audience. I wasn't really feeling it, so I'm more than likely going to drop this one. The story has potential, but I feel like the current storytelling is going to do this show a massive disservice if it doesn't get any better. We open up with Miyano noticing a kid getting bullied at the side of the school. He's on the phone notifying someone about it, but he gets impatient and is about to intervene. But Sasuke randomly comes up and intervenes instead. From there, we watch a friendship blossom between Sasuke and Miyano and the start of a slice of life romance story. Not much really happens in the first episode, but it was pretty entertaining to say the least. I don't usually watch BL yaoi, but something about this episode made me want to keep watching. Watching Sasuke slowly start to get infatuated with Miyano and Miyano opening up to him got me invested pretty quickly. Recommending manga, exchanging cookies, sharing drinks. You got your setup for what's going to be your typical romance. The first episodes really don't go over too much of the story, but it does get heavily into interactions between the characters that are either comedic, wholesome, or romantic. I'm more than likely going to watch this through, so if you're into BL, you should go for it too. Prince Wayne wants nothing more than to be rid of his royal duties. So he plans to sell off his country as soon as the opportunity presents itself, but unfortunately for him, things don't go as he plans. We find out his country is at war with a neighboring country, but there's a problem. The other country has more men than them. Luckily, Prince Wayne is wagering on this disadvantage to finally be out of his royal position, but his men were able to turn the tide against the disadvantage. Wayne's army shortly gained advantage until they gas out and the opposing general notices. So the general takes this moment to full charge Wayne's company and follow him into a narrow canyon where they get led into a trap. The prince's aide, Ninam, swiftly takes care of the general and his men only for the war to be victoriously decided right then and there. After that, a meeting is called to discuss the next plan of action against a neighboring country while they're weak. Prince Wayne then tries to dissuade the men by suggesting a suicidal mission, only for the leaders to be already prepared and well equipped for that mission. The episodes end with Wayne's army succeeding in the mission and the prince extremely dissatisfied with his winning outcome. I'm not going to lie, besides its terrible CGI intro, I really dug this show. It gave me the Realist Hero vibes, except this lazy MC wants nothing more than for his country to fail, only for them to keep surpassing every challenge that they're given. And honestly, to see him constantly succeed when he doesn't want to is pretty freaking funny. I also just get Kazuma vibes from Prince Wayne, and that's not a bad thing. I honestly think everyone should give this a watch. It's definitely one I'll be keeping up with. In Arc Earth Online, players can work on their skills and create kingdoms to their heart's content. So once everything was said, players do what players do, go to war. But one country is the greatest of them all, and that country is Al-Qaeda. Aot being great, the refugee mages made their way there to seek refuge under the 9 wise men. This group of mages are at the top of their craft, and one that stands out above them all is Danbalf. Danbalf is a summoner with the moniker of the one-man army. One day, he's summoned by the paladin Solomon to defend the country against an army that was suddenly attacking, and he's the only one available to help. So Danbalf heads over there, and here you can see how absolutely OP he is, with hundreds of summons and a singing angel to provide a cheesy musical battle theme. With that army of goblins destroyed, they head back to Aot with the good news. Right after that, Danbalf disappears and we get a 5-minute music montage of a random naked girl next to Danbalf's robes wandering around. Okay, this very long music montage feels like the studio just threw you into a pool when you don't know how to swim and said, figure it out. It was weird, but from my Sherlock deductive reasoning, I was able to conclude that the girl who is very obviously Danbalf has been isekai'd into Arc Online, and the way you're supposed to be able to figure that out is by seeing her smell the flower and taste the food, letting you know that they have their senses. Okay, but why did they have to make this a freaking 5-minute musical montage with no dialogue? Couldn't you have at least inserted some voice lines from her throughout the entire thing? It felt really weird and off-putting in a way. I was left confused as all hell and more annoyed than anything. I feel sorry for the light novel fans who were waiting for this because this was terrible. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, and I'm dropping this harder than Crunchyroll dropping the ball when Attack on Titan viewers crashed their website. The show opens up with our male lead, Ryangha, assassinating a whole group in a parking garage, only to notice Chateau, our female lead, pointing a pistol at him. Ryangha rushes towards her and dodges bullets because, you know, anime, and is able to disarm her and pin her down. He then does what any other assassin does to their competition: flirt with them. From there, you see Ryangha follow and obsess over Chateau and even help her find the mark she's meant to eliminate. As you can see, she's very visibly irritated. A little after that, we learn that Ryangha is on a most wanted list from many organizations that want him dead. Despite that, he's able to convince Chateau to meet up with him publicly. Here, we're able to see his yandere side and he grasps her arm. Ryangha notices he's hurting her and loosens his grip only for Chateau to pull out a taser to try to subdue him. Trying to get her to calm down, he then tells her that the only way he'll give her the mark is if she goes on a date with him on Christmas Eve. Fast forward to their date, Ryangha tries his best to interact with her only for him to keep getting shut down. She tries to leave but baits her with more info on another mark. After that, they head to a hotel and Chateau explains her frustration of what he wants with her. Hearing this, he sees that she's all business and uses this to keep her around until he says goodbye to her at the subway entrance. And the episode ends with a flashback of young Chateau being found in a car alongside her murdered father. Okay, here we have a josei here that actually caught my interest. Albeit this episode was a little bland at times, but I enjoyed the interaction of the main lead duo because their relationship is reminiscent of Usui and Misaki from Maid-sama. Plus, it's been a while since we had a decent male yandere. But like I said, some of it felt bland and slow, so I'm gonna give it 2 more episodes to see how it goes and decide from there. And with that, besides a few gems and the already recurring anime, this season ain't too strong for new shows. We got our steampunk fiction, our romances, our fantasy, and isekais. But if I had to put my money on which ones are going to be great this season, it'll be Sabikui Bisco and My Dress Up Darling. Those two will likely have a long, healthy life ahead of them. Unfortunately, I didn't watch every new anime, but there could still be a gem we don't know about. If you find out about it, let me know. My last vids were on Mushoku Tensei and Demon Slayer. Go watch them. I'm Wado and I'm out. Thanks for watching.